You said something. You said you made a video when the fact that if you have this many watches with Patek, they'll make a custom watch for you, right? Okay. So for a guy like me, I bought this watch. This is the first watch I bought. I bought it in 2015. I was in Paris. We had flown in from Dubai. And the watch couldn't be sold for another 6 months. I go downstairs to the sales. I said, what do you have that you can't sell? He says, I have this. I said, what is it? I have that. Why can't you sell it? Well, I can't sell it because the market, we just got it. There's only a few of them, but I can sell it to you in 3 to 6 months. I said, well, I'd like to buy it. So I'm telling you, I can't sell it. Anyways, by the 5th day, we build a relationship. He agreed to sell it to me. No problem. I bought the watch. I bought this for my son. This is for my oldest son. I bought another Patek for my son. I bought a Senna, my daughter Senna. I bought it for her. My wife bought everything I own with watch. I'm not in the business of reselling. I'm in the business of, hey, son, I wore this because when I was in, France, I bought this for you because you were 3 years old, and I said, one day this is going to be yours. I wore this watch when we sold our company, and I was wearing this. History, family, it means a lot to my kids, right?
You do the same with art.
I love it. So, but going to it for a guy like me who would like to put on a big 50th birthday party and reward the people that have been most influential in my life. And I would like to find a way to make a custom watch collection to sell it to them, okay? Who would I go through to be able to do that? Nobody?
You're not going to Patek. You're not going to Rolex.
Okay.
You're not going to Omega. But there are plenty of brands that would love an opportunity. And so, for example...
Big brands or like the new ones?
So, for example, I brought with me Ulysse Nardin, right? This is a Jacquemart minute repeater, striking time. This is one of the most complicated movements that a watch can have. A minute repeater. It literally chimes out the time, right? So it will, if I wind it, you can hear it. You can actually... Let me just wind it real quick. And it's also a mechanical automation, kind of like the big clocks they had in medieval times. So... if I depress this, you can take the headphones off. See how the guys are moving and striking a bell?
Wow. By the way, that's a beautiful watch.
So that's
come close and see. Daniel, come here. You got to see this.
They made only 30 of those.
Okay.
It's a $380,000 watch. And obviously what you're paying for is the complication. Not only does it chime out the time, it also actually animates on the screen. And Jacquemart's quick side story goes back to, literally means guys ringing bells. So think about medieval times when either you wanted to tell people what time it was, or you wanted to warn them of a fire or anything like that. That's why it's called Jacquemart's. Although there's another theory that in 1905, some monks wrote a book that talked about Jacquemart, a guy named Jacquemart, who invented the automation of the clocks, actually striking bells automatically on top of the towers. But there's always a story behind this stuff. So you go to a brand like...
not Rolex, not Patek, not Omega.
You go to a brand like Ulysse Nardin. Now, mind you, they've been around since 1846. They made their money in marine chronometers. In fact, they were so good that the English Navy ditched their marine chronometers and they were able to use theirs, that they sold them throughout the time. The U.S. Army, same thing. They used chronometers at sea because back then, you needed to know where you are at sea, right? And what you needed to know is the difference of time that has passed since you left the port of entry so you can calculate where you actually are, right? So they made their big name. They've been around since 1846 continuously. This is a brand with a ton of history. So this is a brand that would actually value somebody like you. Remember, Patek, Rolex, some of these brands, they'll have their noses up in the air. Omega is owned by a big group, right? It's the Swatch Group.
How about AP or VC or those guys?
AP is also going to be very difficult. A lot of these companies, the industry that you're going into, they have their noses up in the air and they think about how is it going to affect us and what is that going to start? If PBD wants to have a watch made, then the next guy is going to want to have a watch made. What they do instead is they take on ambassadors, they make limited editions for them, right? So Jay-Z was an ambassador for AP. LeBron was an ambassador for AP. John Mayer's an ambassador for AP, right? They either make a limited edition or they'll make a run that is designed by the person.
If they do a limited edition of 30, they're not giving Jay-Z the 30 to do. They're giving one to Jay-Z.
That was a big thing, by the way. Francois, the ex-CEO of Audemars Piguet, he came to the Swiss and said, hey, I want to use this hip-hop artist as an ambassador. And they all flipped out. What are you talking about? World of hip-hop, AP, where this... Because remember, these are all suit-wearing, white glove, very conservative people. They only allowed him to create... They did 10 pieces in platinum. They did 50 pieces in rose, and they did 80 pieces in stainless steel. And they only allowed him to sell it in America. But when they sold like hotcakes, this thing came with an iPod signed by him, big box, awesome watch. And when they saw the success of that, that's when they loosened up a little bit. Oh, there it is.
And what did that? So they gave it to Jay-Z, and then they sold the rest.
Jay-Z got one to wear one
Right.
as an ambassador,
Sure.
and they sold the rest. And they sold like hotcakes. In fact, they sold over retail. This is back in those times. The AP offshores, limited offshores, were the hottest thing, and I was selling a ton of them. So if a stainless steel wanted back then retail for somewhere around that $15,000 to $17,000 price range, they were selling on a secondary for $35,000.
Wow. And what's it selling for today?
17.
17,000.
Trade. This is when people ask me about watches being an investment. You have to remember one thing.
You are joking.
Trends. Think about the trends, because this is what's selling. That's the latest and the greatest for AP. The Frosted Rainbow. This is the watch that trades at double its retail value today. Trends. Remember, this is something you put on and you wear and you flex with. And now what do? With the fuel of social media, you look up to those that you admire on social media.
What's make this special?
So this is first of all, it's a frosted finish. So if you notice, feel it.
Oh my God.
It feels like sandpaper a little
my
bit. This is
God.
all hand hammered.
Daniel, can you zoom in on this? It feels amazing.
Right? You also have a rainbow bezel. So these are sapphire bezel done as a rainbow. This is obviously, Rolex started with a rainbow Daytona, and then everybody kind of caught on with it. It's also a skeleton double balance. It's a super accurate watch.
So what does this go for? You said
This is going to cost like $380.
this is $380. But in this, when it first came out, what was this when it first
Well,
came out?
the MSRP on the watch is $168,000.
And it's selling for $380 right now.
Exactly.
What is it going to be worth in 15 years? Back to 180?
This is where I wanted to talk to you about investments, right? Notice I brought a little bit of everything. I brought the latest and the greatest and the hype, right? But I also brought you proven pieces. The last auction result on this watch was $1.25 million.
And that watch is how old?
This watch dates back to late 70s, early
Late
80s.
70s.
Right?
Got it. So that's an investment. You buy that, you set that aside, you're going to be fine.
But then here's the thing. It also depends on the quantities, right? And who actually owns these watches in the market. So if you think about it this way, if I needed to get you two of these, you call me, it's like, I want one for me and I want one for him. I would say, sorry.
I like them a lot. So
That much?
not that much, but I like them.
But and my response to you would be, I'm sorry, I'm going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, well, why? Well, there's only 6 cities in the world. So what am I going to do? I sold one of these before. So this is the second one I have.
Yeah.
I would go back to my client who paid me $1.2 million and say, listen, would you consider selling your watch? Now, people that are buying $1 million watches, they're not exactly somebody that are motivated by money. They're motivated by things that nobody else has and they can't have. And I'm going to have to make them an offer he can't refuse. So if you buy that watch and tomorrow somebody wants it, you say, you know what, Roman, I'll part with it, but I'll need $2 million. Imagine if you owned the highest graded Mickey Mantle, the one that sold for $12 million, right? Mm-hmm. And you're that collector. What would it take for you to get rid of that card? It would have to be some ridiculous offer or something where you, oh, you know what? If you get me the #1 Superman, I'll let go of this. Like on Ken's show, right? Remember that whole ordeal with the comic books, the last episode that he did, or the last season? By the way, I'm interviewing with Alex at my office when I get back on Thursday. They're doing a whole interview. They want to talk about Formula One and collectability and all that stuff. Alex Guillaume, the one that was on the show.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so let's go back to this. So if again, Patek, the idea of that watch that we looked at, you and I, the Grandmaster, Rob, if you can go to it. So this watch, I think Sly just sold his,
5.5.
right? 5.2. I think I saw 5.2. Was it 5?
All in, it was $5.5 million. 5.6.
You're adding the 22% or whatever.
Well, you have to.
Totally get it. So if you take the 22 out, you got to put it in there. I get it. Okay. So what makes this watch unique? Where when you and I were speaking, I said, how many of these did they make? You're like, nobody knows how many they made. Is it 8? Is it 12? Is it 16?
It's not high.
Is it less than 20?
Most likely, yes.
More than 10?
Yes.
Okay. So 10 or 20 of this they make. And it says the Grandmaster Chime is the most complicated Patek watch ever made. It boasts 20 complications, a reversible case, and 2 independent dials and 6 patent innovations. The development, production, and assembly process staggering. You mean to tell me this took 100,000 hours to make? 100,000 hours. So I was about to buy one. You and I talked about this, and you persuaded me to get away from buying it. And we talked about the dollar amount. It was good when we had to. By the way, just so you guys know, if you're thinking about buying a watch, you can connect Roman and ask him a question about a watch. Whether you want to buy a watch from him or whether you want to buy a watch from somebody else, you just want his counsel, you can send him a connect. And I would highly recommend you ask an expert like him before you buy a watch. He's on Connect, download the app, go to Roman Sharf, or use a QR code. You can go ask a question from him. So what makes that watch be worth as much as it was where Mark Wahlberg owned one, right? Sly had his that he sold, and a few other people that owned it. And Sly made a video saying, "I cannot believe I got this watch." He put his gloves on, the whole presentation. Remember when I'm sure you've seen the video.
I had that watch in my hands. I'm friends with Sotheby's, so I was there to preview it.
What makes that watch that special, that right off the bat? It's not like it's an old watch. It's not like a prince had it, a king had it, a president had it. It's not like that's a watch from the Shah. It just came out 5 years ago, and they're already asking that big of an amount right there. So for $5.4 million, show the watch that he's holding, Rob. What makes this so unique?
People want what they can't have. Now, Patek has what's called a application process. In order to get up to that watch and to be able to get it from Patek at retail, which is roughly about half that, right? You would have to have a history with Patek dating back years. You have to start from the ground up, and you would have to buy an X amount of watches over years upon years upon years. Then you have to go through a vigorous interview process with Stern. He'll literally fly you out to Switzerland. Before he flies you out to Switzerland, he's going to say, what's your purchase history? How many pieces have you bought? You literally have to work your way up to it, starting with a $20,000 Patek to $200, $300, $400. To get to this, which is the ultimate grand complication. And this is the biggest scam that a company can create, and I salute them for it. Imagine this. You want to spend $2.3 million on a watch. You call Patek Philippe, and they say, well, what have you bought from us before? Where's your history? Oh, you haven't bought enough from us. I'm sorry. We can't sell you this watch. Like, think about it. Think about what that creates inside the mind of a person that can afford this $2 million watch. And what do? They go out in the secondary and they pay to say, hey, F you, I have the watch. It's the inavailability. If you can't get it, you want it. Same thing with Richard Mille. You can't get them. There's a line that's a mile long for them.
Ferrari,
there you go.
Ferrari dealership, and the SP3 comes out. And you look at the SP3, if you were on the list, you could have bought it for $2.4 million, right?
But you have to have the SP2.
That's right. You have to have
and
the SP
SP1.
Monza, and you have to have the SP1. You have to have a couple of this. But look at this car. I just saw one 2 days ago in the dealership. They got a
client of mine got that watch in purple.
The car in purple?
The car in
Holy
purple.
Shit,
and I'm like, why? Well, he's got 20.
I wouldn't do purple.
Yeah.
To your friend, whoever your friend is, not my taste, but good for you. When I see this car, you're just like, you freaking car. I want you. It's gorgeous. And I'm a LaFerrari guy. My youngest son liked the Enzo, so we look at the Monza. We want to get some kind of a collection to put in the hangar, but you want this SP3. If you're not in the system, haven't bought them. By the way, Jay Leno cannot stand Ferrari's point system, cannot stand how they work. I mean, he's been so critical that he doesn't even buy anything directly from them because he can't stand the fact that they do what they do. You need to own all these other cars. With Patek, similar system. What you're saying?
It's literally exactly the same.
Okay, perfect. So, whereas in Ferrari, they want you to have a Testarossa, they want you to have a Pista, they want you to have a Italia, they want you to have a V12, they want you to have a this. Engines, different models that they look at, right? What's Patek's?
Patek's is, again, it's literally a volume.
Is it just dollar amount or volume?
It's a volume as well as you going up in complications, right? So let's say you started, you started with a California, let's say, and then you moved yourself up to a Pista 812.
Is it buying directly from them or from anybody?
It's buying either directly from them or buying from their authorized dealers.
Oh, perfect. So if you have bought it from authorized, okay. So the levels, does it eventually go to the point where they will make a one-off just for you?
Yes.
So why'd you say they don't do it? Like you said earlier that
the exceptions are so rare. I've been doing this for 22 years.
Yeah.
Okay. I sold 4 one-off Pateks in my entire career.
So the sales guy in Venice, I just talked shit about you. He was telling the truth. So you could get to a point that they make one for your family.
Yes, but the amount of spend and the connection, it's also not just about the spend. It's also about who you know and how important are you of a figure. It's not about sometimes even the spend, but they have shied away from doing stuff that's unique for many, many years. The youngest piece unique Patek, actually we sold one last week, but that one dates back to the 70s. It was a unique dial, special order dial. It was an $880,000 Patek.
But there's only one of it.
There's only one. I've sold a 3939. If you saw that watch, we call it the billionaire's watch. Put in Patek 3939. That look like $500,000 to you?
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Well, the one I sold was, I think the retail originally on the watch was somewhere around 300 and something when I first sold them. This watch was made with a black dial for someone. At the time, the market on a regular one was $350,000. That one sold for $550,000. Again, somebody had a relationship. Somebody had somebody on the inside. Don't forget, that happens too. Because that particular watch didn't really come from a collector. It came from an individual who posed as a collector for many, many years, had some inside hook within the company, managed to get that watch.
And then when it does happen with that relationship, whoever the individual is, what does that look like? Is that you go in, what do you want to be unique about it? What would you like it to have? Does it have meanings for your family? Is there certain things?
There's going to be limitation out the wazoo. There's not going to be, oh, I wanted an orange dial with these markers and I want you to put a diamond at 11 o'clock. That doesn't happen.
But is it kind of like you go there and the artist tells you, here's what we're going to put together for your family, or do you have any influence over the art?
You have some influence. For example, you can deviate just a tiny bit because most of these unique watches, they usually have some sort of a different dial, and that usually translates into a color. So if a watch that's normally not made with a black dial and you ask them for a black dial with red markers, they may entertain that.
Got it. So it's not
But
dramatically.
you're not going to see a dramatic difference. In fact, most people won't know that that's a one-off.
And why is it, when it comes onto watches, would you put them at the top? Are they the cream of the crop?
So Rolex is king and Patek Philippe is the Rolls Royce, right? When I say king, I say in terms of sales. I mean, this is a company that spits out over 1 million watches a year. Their sales in 2023 were more combined than the other three brands below them in terms of sales, right? Rolex is number one in terms of popularity up here.
So it's Rolex, Mercedes.
Rolex, yeah, I would say so.
And then Patek is Rolls Royce.
Patek is Rolls Royce.
And what makes Patek Rolls Royce?
It's the prestige. It's the prestige. Majority of their catalog is pretty conservative. They tend to a older crowd, a more successful crowd, I would say. Rolex is a first money watch, right? My very first watch was a Rolex I bought at a pawn shop for $1,000 when I got my first corporate job. My Rolex walked into the room 5 minutes before I did. Hey, everybody, look, I have a Rolex on my wrist, right? People don't do that with Patek.
Why not?
It's more conservative. Majority of their lineup, what's hot now is their Nautilus, is their stainless steel stuff. The young kids are wearing that because it's hot, it's popular, it's in all the rap songs, right? Where 90% of the Patek catalog, you can get at a discount. You know that, right?
90%
of their entire catalog I can bring to you at a discount.
How much of a discount?
Anywhere from 10% to, if it's on a secondary, maybe less than half. Don't think that Patek and every single brand, to include AP, are big almighty like Rolex. Rolex is the mightiest in terms of majority of their catalog today trading at over retail. That's how popular they are.
Yeah.
With Patek, it's Nautilus, it's Aquanaut, and a few other brands.
I just typed right now Patek's market cap, $2.37 billion. And they're the third largest market cap. And it got 6% of the market share, okay, when you look at them.
How about Rolex?
Rolex, Rob, can you type in Rolex market cap to see? Rolex is at $11.25 billion market cap. Cartier's at 3.59. Omega's $3 billion.
Yep.
Omega's $3 billion, and these guys are at 2.6.
Omega is the money horse for Swatch Group. Guys, I get 1 million DMs a day. You guys are asking me, how do I get into the watch industry? Well, I've been doing this for 22 years. I don't have time to answer 1,000 DMs a day. I try my best. However, all those questions can be asked of me on Minect, and all the proceeds from those will go to my charity.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.